Joining us live are USF Professor Tim Iglesias. He specializes in housing issues. Professor Iglesias, good morning.
Thank you very much.
And Alex Clemens is a political strategist and the founder of Barbary Coast Consulting in San Francisco. Alex, welcome.
Good morning, Josh.
So what message did San Francisco voters send this time around as it relates to the cost of living here? Based on where the results are now, what do you think voters are telling their elected leaders about what to do next? Alex Clemens, what message do you think this election sends so far?
Well, San Francisco is struggling with one of its most complex narratives in decades, as the question of who gets to live here and who can afford to live here is paramount on everyone's mind. While the mayor's race didn't have a set of challenges who are already elected, well-known and well-funded, the Mayor Lee was reelected with more than a 40% bump between him and his closest challenger. So we're going to see some more of what we've seen over the past 5 years actually, with Mayor Lee. But there is a new catalytic change. The old is new again. Aaron Peskin is going to be joining the Board of Supervisors sometime in December, returning to his seat as District 3 Supervisor, and that will provide a great deal of conflict in City Hall that we haven't seen recently.
Yeah, I do want to get more into the Aaron Peskin race in a minute, but Professor Iglesias, what do you make of the overall message of this election?
I think what the voters are saying is they're very concerned about affordable housing. They're very concerned about the character of San Francisco, but what they want is clarity in the choices.
You know, Professor, hang on just one second. I think we're having an issue with your mic. Why don't you come around and hang out with me or actually go hang out with Alex Clemens while I ask you guys about some of the items that were on the ballot. Let's start with Proposition F. That would have tightened the limits on short-term rentals through sites like Airbnb. The company spent millions on this highly visible, rather aggressive campaign to kill Prop F, and it looks like they may have succeeded in doing so. Professor Iglesias, what do you make of the overall impact of this campaign? Not just Prop F itself, but everything in this whole political conversation, this debate over housing costs.
Well, what I think is the voters are really concerned about affordable housing, about maintaining the character of San Francisco, but they want some clarity. I think that's why both A and D passed handily, but F and I seem to be losing. It's because, in one sense, the F and I, the effects of the propositions were unclear, or at least the voters were confused about whether that was really going to help or not.
And just to be clear, for those of you who didn't vote in San Francisco, Proposition A was an affordable housing bond. That appears to be passing very handily. Proposition D had to do with the development related to the Giants at Mission Rock near the water. That also appears to be passing very strongly. Prop F was the Airbnb item, and Proposition I was the moratorium on market rate housing in San Francisco's Mission District. Alex Clemens, what do you make of how Airbnb mounted this campaign? How much of a difference do you think that it made in the results, as opposed to people just being unsure if this was the right way to go?
Airbnb has spent probably more money in Airbnb's campaign expenditures represent the largest single expenditure by one company in San Francisco political history, to my understanding and to the understanding of the several insiders I've chatted with over the past few weeks. The final numbers may approach $10 million, and while they were dwarfed by the soda tax or the soda industry last year, that money was spent by a large number of corporations. Airbnb took no chances with this one. They invested an extraordinary amount of money to influence the outcome of this election, and I believe they are doing so to try to send a message not only to San Francisco voters, but to other elected officials and community leaders across the country who might seek to put in place similar regulations.
We're discussing yesterday's election results in San Francisco with political strategist Alex Clemens and USF Professor Tim Iglesias. Professor Iglesias, let me ask you about Mayor Ed Lee. He won re-election yesterday, apparently by a very wide, very solid margin, as pretty much everyone expected. How do you expect he will address some of these cost of living issues that were on the ballot this year and other issues in his next term, like homelessness, for example?
Well, I think it's not clear. On the one hand, he supported Prop A, and he put that forward, and that won, and that's going to help somewhat. The main way that Prop A, that money is going to help, is to leverage state and federal monies. On homelessness, I think his record is mixed. I think the real message, in a sense, from the voters on both Prop F and also Prop I is that this fight is not over. So I think he and the Board of Supervisors are going to face ongoing pressure to address the crises, and the question is whether they will on the elected official level or whether these advocates are going to go back to the ballot the next time we have elections.
You know, as it relates to the Board of Supervisors, Alex Clemens, you brought that up earlier about Aaron Peskin and Aaron Peskin running for District 3 Supervisor. He seems to have won that race. It seems like that would shift the balance of power on the board maybe further to the left. How would that affect some of these cost of living issues that were on the ballot?
I believe that the progressive left in San Francisco is going to feel empowered, certainly for the next year, while it appears they have not a bulletproof majority, but a majority of the representatives of that 11-member body. It's possible that we will see over the next year, until 3 of the progressives term out in 2016, more affordable housing legislation, more classically progressive San Francisco-type initiatives. I expect to see the ballot in both June and November of 2016 to be filled with various initiatives that are primarily there to illustrate a wedge between moderate and progressive voters.
And briefly, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the race for San Francisco sheriff. It looks like Vicki Hennessy has a commanding lead over the incumbent Ross Amir Karimi. What do you make of that? Did it have to do with the whole sanctuary city debate with the shooting at the Embarcadero or his past issues with domestic violence? I mean, what do you attribute that to, briefly?
I don't think there's anybody who's run for office in San Francisco recently who's had as many challenges as Sheriff Mercarimi has. He is only the 4th incumbent and only the 2nd elected incumbent since the year 2000 to lose office in San Francisco.
That's political strategist Alex Clemens of Barbary Coast Consulting and USF professor Tim Iglesias.